So, what did we read yesterday? Man, we saw that Solomon fell into paganism. Again, for the children of Israel, we're falling into this again. Due to the influence of his 1,000 wives, right? He married into different, the royalty of different nations, and was easily influenced by their customs, and he built temples to their gods and worshipped their gods. So God said, you're going to have to pay the consequences. And he didn't want to end Solomon's rule for the sake of David. So he's going to rip it away from his son. So that's what we're going to jump into right now. So let's start 1 Kings chapter 12.
And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to make him king. So it happened,
Rehoboam is
when
Solomon's
Jeroboam,
son.
the son of Nebat, heard it. He was still in Egypt, for he had fled from the presence of King Solomon and had been dwelling in Egypt, that they sent and called him. Then Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam.
Your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, and we will serve you.
Depart for 3 days, then come back to me.
And the people departed.
He
Then
wants 3 days to think about
King
it.
Rehoboam consulted the elders.
Or are those 3 days their vacation to lighten their load? That would be a troll move if he did that.
Who stood before his father Solomon while he still lived. And he said,
How do you advise me to answer these people?
If you will be a servant to these people today, and serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever.
But he rejected the advice which the elders had given him, and consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him.
What advice do you give? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Lighten the yoke which your father put on us?
Thus you should speak to this people who have spoken to you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter on us. Thus you shall say to them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist. And now, whereas my father put a heavy yoke on you, I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges.
So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had directed, saying,
So he's saying, it's kind of an odd way to say it. My little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist, meaning I'm not going to do anything. You guys are going to do all my work. Right? Because he's sitting there and getting fat. I'm guessing that's what he's trying to go for. And he's going to add to their yoke.
Come back to me the 3rd day. Then the king answered the people roughly, and rejected the advice which the elders had given him. And he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men.
My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges.
Dang, word for
So
word
the
he's
king
saying
did
it.
not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from the Lord, that he might fulfill his word, which the Lord had spoken by Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Now when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king.
What share have we in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel! Now, see to your own house, O David!
So Israel departed to their tents. But Rehoboam reigned over the children of Israel who dwelt in the cities of Judah. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram.
Man, this is all going back to the warning that Samuel gave, right? The only reason God appointed Saul to be king is because the people really wanted it. And I don't know, like he's like that's what I'm saying. That's what I said before. Like Old Testament, when you think Old Testament God, people think like, oh my gosh, he's ruthless. But he's very lenient. He's like, these people really, really keep wanting a king. I say, no, you don't do it because of this reason. This is what's going to happen. They're like, no, we want a king. So God was like, okay, fine. You really want a king? All right, I'll pick a king. So the damage won't be as severe, right? So I'll go ahead and look for a king for you guys if you really, really want a king. Like that's not that's like something he loves his children so much that he's, like he's going out of his way to do something. He knows that, he's like, it's like sort of like he's spoiling his kids type of thing. And but now we're seeing the consequences. This is what God warned would happen. All these things that are happening right now. We saw that with Solomon accruing all that wealth and women to himself. God said that that's what's going to happen. And, man.
Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was in charge of the revenue. But all Israel stoned him with stones, and he died. Therefore King Rehoboam mounted his chariot in haste to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. Now it came to pass, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam had come back, they sent for him and called him to the congregation and made him king over all Israel. There was none who followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. And when Rehoboam came to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of...
Man, so David's kid and his grandkid are ruined his name. The children of Israel are just like, all right, we're done with you guys.
Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men who were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel, that he might restore the kingdom to Rehoboam the son of Solomon. But the word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God.
Speak to Rehoboam the son of Solomon, king of Judah, to all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the rest of the people, saying, Thus says the Lord.
Well, also God did that also, right? He took away pretty much all of the tribes from under David's line, from under Solomon. I mean, from under Rehoboam. That's what he told Solomon when he was still king.
You shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Let every man return to his house, for this thing is from me.
Therefore,
that's crazy.
They obeyed the word of the Lord,
Judah and the children of Israel are separate.
According to the word of the Lord. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim, and dwelt there. Also he went out from there and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart,
Now the kingdom may return to the house of David. If these people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will turn back to their lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah.
Therefore the king asked advice.
Wait, let me go back a little bit.
Judah will go up to...
Then Jeroboam built Shechem. Okay. Hold up 1 second. Is this... No, not yet. Okay.
To offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem. then the heart of this people will turn back to their lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah.
Therefore the king asked advice, made 2 calves of gold, and said to the people,
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt.
And he set up one in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan.
Come on, man. So okay, let me go back again. Jeroboam is was a servant of Solomon, and so now this servant of Solomon is made king over Israel, right? Because the children of Israel deserted David's line, right? But David's line had turned to paganism since Solomon already, right? And now we're continuing with it with another line. Dang it, what in the world, man? This is not good. Man, so I was thinking maybe, okay, only Solomon fell into paganism, right? But no, Jeroboam did also. So that means the people, at least the people of the court, right? There's some surrounding people of the court that had fallen into paganism. Hopefully the children of Israel, the rest of the children of Israel did not. Dang. Let's see if this commentary has anything to say about all this. Well, before I do that, let's read ahead a little bit more, because Jeroboam is like, here are these gold calves that brought you out of Egypt. This guy. What is he saying?
Heart of this people will turn back to their lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Go up to offer.
Let me read this. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim and dwelt there. Also he went out from there and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom may return to the house of David, if these people go up to offer sacrifices
in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem. Then the heart of this people will turn back to their lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah.
So he's thinking that if they prayed and sacrificed to God, right? If these people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord, they'll turn back to Rehoboam, right? Because that's the line that God had designated, right? He anointed David, and then Solomon came after, and Rehoboam after Solomon. But would they turn back? Because Rehoboam is not following God, right? I don't think Rehoboam turned to God. I don't think it said much. Yeah, I don't think it said much, but I'm assuming he did, because Solomon, if Jeroboam is, let's look it up. How do I spell this? Rehoboam. Idolatry. That's a podcast. Jeroboam promoted idolatry, right. But did Rehoboam pray to God, or did he pray to idols? Let's see. I don't think it said anything like that. But I would assume that he did worship idols because it was all over Israel. Solomon had built temples and altars to these idols all over Israel. Or Jerusalem. Shemaiah, prophet of God, delivered God's message to Rehoboam. The troops should go home because the divided kingdom had come from the Lord. Yeah, I didn't talk about who Rehoboam prayed to, but I'm assuming he still continued to pray to idols, and so yeah, I don't understand why Jeroboam thinks that the children of Israel will go back to Rehoboam if they turn to God. I think the only way I would think that is because they know, okay, the children of Israel think, okay, this is the line that God had set, so we will turn back to Him. So what he's trying to do is just turn the children of Israel to paganism, so they don't think about God and turn back. Like, this guy is
Jeroboam
crazy.
said in his heart,
Now the kingdom may return to the house of David.
Yeah, this is insane. This is like some.
If these people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem,
That means he doesn't care about
then
God
the
at all.
heart of this people will turn back to their Lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and go back to Rehoboam, king of Judah.
Therefore the king asked advice, made 2 calves of gold, and said to the people,
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem.
Crazy thing is, there are people still alive from the day that the temple was built. The temple, even if you weren't alive when the temple was built, you have that temple there. If they turned it into something else, I mean, I doubt it, because Solomon built other altars and stuff for these other gods. But man, this situation is just so messed up, man. This is like taking me back to Judges. Like, these children of Israel keep falling into paganism.
To go up to Jerusalem.
God knew, man. God knew. This is why He said, don't intermarry. Kill literally every other pagan person out there or in the surrounding lands, because you guys are so easily influenced.
Here are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt.
And he
Even
set
the
up
audacity
one in
to say
Bethel,
that.
and the other he put in Dan. Now this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one as far as Dan. He made shrines on the high places, and made priests from every class of people who were not of the sons of Levi.
Oh.
Jeroboam ordained a feast on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the feast that was in Judah, and offered sacrifices on the altar. So he did at Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he had made. And at Bethel,
On which altar?
the
Which altar, Jeroboam? My gosh. Does the Bible have any insight? I doubt it. Jeroboam's new religious institutions included starting a new religious order that did not include the Levites, setting up shrines at high places, and replacing the Feast of Tabernacles with a fall festival in the 8th month. His various attempts at religious innovation would quickly incur God's denunciation and earn him a reputation that would live in spiritual infamy. Yeah, no doubt. He had no care in the world of God or anything. He's just wanting to do what he thinks is best for himself and the continual of the hold his ability to hold power.
priests of the high places which he had made. So he made offerings on the altar which he had made at Bethel on the 15th
he made this
day
altar.
of the 8th month, in the month which he had
At
devised.
least he's not using
in
the
his own
altar in
heart.
the temple.
And he ordained a feast for the children of Israel, and offered sacrifices on the altar, and burned incense.
But it's like a corruption. It's the same thing in Judges, man. It's like a corruption of their beliefs. They're like taking a set of beliefs and they're taking this new set of beliefs and they're combining them together, just like they did in Judges. They were thinking that God was among many gods. The surrounding nations believed in these idols and these gods, and God was just one among them. And they had Levites as priests for these other gods, and like they had temples. They had these gods sitting in their shrines in their houses where they prayed to the real God and these gods, and like it was just all mixed up and like this.
And behold, a man of God went from Judah to Bethel by the word
Who's
of
this
the
guy?
Lord. And Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. Then he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord,
O altar, altar, thus says the Lord, behold, a child, Josiah by name,
Josiah,
shall be
the
born
boy
to
king.
the house of David. And on you he shall sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and men's bones shall be burned on you.
and he gave a sign the same day.
This is the sign which the Lord has spoken. Surely the altar shall split apart, and the ashes on it shall be poured out.
So it came to pass, when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of God, who cried out against the altar in Bethel, that he stretched out his hand from the altar.
Arrest him!
Then his hand, which he stretched out toward him, withered, so that he could not pull it back to himself.
I vividly remember this this picture in one of these Bible story books that we had. There's an artist rendition of it. If I can find it, I'm gonna put it in the thumbnail.
The altar also was split apart, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Then the king answered and said to the man of God,
Please entreat the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored to me.
So now when things come down to it, who does he pray to?
ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Then the king answered and said to the man of God,
Please entreat the favor of the Lord your God,
Come on,
and
man.
pray for me, that my hand may be restored to me.
See,
So
he
the
doesn't
man
even.
of God-
He knows. He's like, I can't even pray. You pray for me, because if God's not even going to listen to me after all I've
God
done.
entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him, and became as before. Then the king
See what I
said
mean
to the
when I say that, when everybody says God of the Old Testament is ruthless, like that's not ruthless at all. That is extremely nice.
man of God,
Like this king just tried to say that these two idols that he just made brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, and he said it in order to turn away the children of Israel from God in fear of losing his seat of power. And God heals him. Like, come on. How is God ruthless in the Old Testament? He's not.
Come home with me and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward.
If you were to give me half your house, I would not go in with you, nor would I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so it was commanded me by the word of the Lord, saying, You shall not eat bread nor drink water, nor return by the same way you came.
so he went another way, and did not return by the way he came to Bethel. Now an old prophet dwelt in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel.
How many
They also
prophets
told
were
their
there?
father the words which he had spoken to the king. And their father said to them,
Which way did he go?
for his sons had seen which way the man of God went, who came from Judah. Then he said to his sons,
Saddle the donkey for me.
So they saddled the donkey for him, and he rode on it, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak.
Are you the man of God who came from Judah?
I am.
Come home with me and eat bread.
I cannot return with you, nor go in with you. Neither can I eat bread nor drink water with you in this place. For I have been told by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat bread nor drink water there, nor return by going the way you came.
I too am a prophet, as you are. And an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with you to your house, that he may eat bread and drink water.
He was lying to him.
Why would he lie about that? What is he going to do?
So he
Why is
went
he
back
luring
with
him to his house?
and ate bread in his house, and drank
This is like Tumnus the Fawn trying to lure Lucy into his little house.
water. Now it happened, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And he cried out to the man of God who came from Judah,
Thus says the Lord, because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord, and have not kept the commandment which the Lord your God commanded you, but you came back, ate bread, and drank water in the place of which the Lord said to you, Eat no bread and drink no water, your corpse shall not come.
Come on, why
of your
tricking the
fathers.
guy?
So it was, after he had eaten bread and after he had drunk, that he saddled
He probably thought like, okay, this guy's the man of God and God told him. Maybe God just didn't tell me yet. Like you self-doubt, you know what I mean? Maybe, it's hard to hear God, right? Like we don't know sometimes if God is talking to us or not. So he probably was like, yeah, maybe this guy, this guy's a man of God and God told him. Maybe I didn't get the memo yet. Man, I feel bad for this
the
guy.
donkey for him, the prophet whom he had brought back. When he was gone, a lion met him on the road.
Maybe he should have trusted that, if God wanted me to know something, he would tell me. Right? He should have had that faith in his relationship with God.
Road and killed him.
Oh, man.
And his corpse was thrown on the road, and the donkey stood by it. The lion
Well, that
also
prophecy
stood by the corpse.
came true pretty
There,
fast.
men passed by and saw the corpse thrown on the road, and the lion standing by the corpse. Then they went and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. Now when the prophet who had brought him back from the way heard it, he said,
It is the man of God who was disobedient to the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has delivered him to the lion, which has torn him and killed him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to him.
and he spoke to his sons.
Saddle the donkey for me.
So they saddled it. Then he went and found his corpse thrown on the road, and the donkey and the lion standing by the corpse.
Oh,
The lion
what?
had not eaten the corpse, nor torn the donkey. And the prophet took up the corpse of the man of God,
With the lion just standing there?
laid it on the donkey, and brought it back. So the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him.
Oh, wow.
Then he laid the corpse in his own tomb, and they mourned over him.
Wow.
Alas,
I did not
my
expect that at
brother.
all.
So it was, after he had buried him, that he spoke to his sons.
When I am dead, then bury me in the tomb where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones,
For the saying which he cried out by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against all the shrines and the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, will surely come to pass.
After this event, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but again he made priests from every class of people for the high places. Whoever wished, he consecrated him, and he became one of the priests of the high places. And this thing was the sin of the house of Jeroboam, so as to exterminate and destroy it from the face of the earth.
Man. This guy Jeroboam has no shame.
At that time, Abijah, the son of Jeroboam, became sick. And Jeroboam said to his wife,
Please arise and disguise yourself, that they may not recognize you as the wife of Jeroboam.
Is Abraham all over again?
Please arise.
He's going to tell him to say, you're my
son
sister.
of Jeroboam became sick. And Jeroboam said to his wife,
Please arise and disguise yourself, that they may not recognize you as the wife of Jeroboam, and go to Shiloh. Indeed, Ahijah the prophet is there, who told me that I would be king over this people. Also take with you 10 loaves, some cakes, and a jar of honey, and go to him. He will tell you what will become of the child.
See, when things get tough, where did they turn to? He's going to a prophet of God, not to his idols.
And Jeroboam's wife did so. She arose and went to Shiloh, and came to the house of Ahijah. But Ahijah could not see, for his eyes were glazed, by reason of his age. Now the Lord had said to Ahijah,
Here is the wife of Jeroboam, coming to ask you something about her son.
So this guy can't see. This lady dressed up in a disguise so she wouldn't be noticed who she was. And so he had everything going for her, right? For her not to be noticed. And then God comes and says, this lady's Jeroboam's wife.
For he is sick. Thus thus you shall
told
say
him the whole
to her,
story.
For it will be when she comes in that she will pretend to be another woman.
And so it was, when Ahijah heard the sound of her footsteps as she came through the door, he said,
Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why do you pretend to be another person? For I have been sent to you with bad news. Go tell Jeroboam, Thus says the Lord God of Israel, Because I exalted you from among the people, and made you ruler over my people Israel, and tore the kingdom away from the house of David, and gave it to you. And yet you have not been as my servant David,
Not at
who
all.
kept my commandments, and who followed me with all his heart, to do only what was right in my eyes. But you have done more evil than all who were before you. For you have gone and made for yourself other gods, and molded images to provoke me to anger, and have cast me behind your back. Therefore, behold, I will bring disaster on the house of Jeroboam, and will cut off from Jeroboam every male in Israel, bond and free. I will take away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam as one takes away refuse, until it is all gone. The dogs shall eat whoever belongs to Jeroboam and dies in the city, and the birds of the air shall eat whoever dies in the field. For the Lord has spoken. Arise, therefore, go to your own house. When your feet enter the city,
Dang, that must have
the
been tough to
child
hear
shall
for his wife.
die. and all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he is the only one of Jeroboam who shall come to the grave, because in him there is found something good toward the Lord God of Israel in the house of Jeroboam. Moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel, who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam. This is the day. What? Even now, for the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will uproot Israel from this good land, which he gave to their fathers, and will scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their wooden images, provoking the Lord to anger. And he will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who sinned and who made Israel sin.
Then Jeroboam's wife arose and departed, and came to Tirzah. When she came to the threshold of the house, the child died, and they buried him. And all Israel mourned for him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke through his servant Ahijah the prophet. Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he made war, and how he reigned, indeed, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. The period that Jeroboam reigned was 22 years. So he rested with his fathers. Then Nadab his son reigned in his place, and Rehoboam the son of Solomon reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became king. He reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. His mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. Now Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they committed, more than all that their fathers had done.
Oh my God.
For they also built for themselves high places, sacred pillars, and wooden images on every high hill.
Oh, well, this answers my earlier question.
Green tree. And there were also perverted persons in the land. They did according to all the abominations of the nations, which the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. It happened in the 5th year of King Rehoboam that Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took away everything. He also took away all the gold shields which Solomon had made. Then King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place, and committed them to the hands of the captains of the guard, who guarded the doorway of the king's house. And whenever the king entered the house of the Lord, the guards carried them, then brought them back into the guard room. Now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And there was war.
Was a king able to enter the house of the Lord? Was it only a priest that could? Does this Bible say anything about that? 1428. The sacking of the treasures of the house of the Lord is particularly shocking. Let's go back here so you can see that. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and he took away everything. Okay, so treasures of the house of the Lord. So that's the furnishings of the temple? Did he take the Ark of the Covenant? The sacking of the treasures of the house of the Lord is particularly shocking when we think of the long and detailed description of Solomon's greatest accomplishment, the building and the furnishing of the holy temple in Jerusalem. The bronze shields, a compelling symbol of the ruin of the temple treasures, is seen in the change from shields of gold, right, to bronze. The book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah is mentioned 15 times in Kings. Apparently, it was an official record of events in the southern kingdom down to the days of Jehoiakim. Neither this work nor the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel, neither this work nor the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel is to be confused with the biblical books of Chronicles. Oh, okay.
Jerusalem. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took away everything. He also took away all the gold shields which Solomon had made.
Is he going to melt it down and make more idols, or what?
Shields in their place, and committed them to the hands of the captains of the guard, who guarded the doorway of the king's house. And whenever the king entered the house of the Lord, the guards carried them, then brought them back into the guard room. Now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And there was war
What is that book?
between
Is there?
Rehoboam and Jeroboam
Does it exist till today?
all their days. So Rehoboam rested with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. Then Abijam, his son, reigned in his place.
Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. The book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah and Israel, two sets of royal annals mentioned in 1st and 2nd Kings, but subsequently lost. The historian of Kings referred to these works as his sources, where additional information may be found. These references show how the historian of Kings used extensive sources selectively. The books are referred to by this formula, with slight variations. Now, the rest of the acts of the king and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah/Israel. Frequently, references are made to his might or how we warred, and occasionally more specific deeds are mentioned. The Israelite annals are mentioned 18 times, and the Judean annals are mentioned 15 times. Of all the kings of Israel, only Jehoram and Hosea are not mentioned as referred to in the Israelite annals. Of the kings of Judah after Solomon, only Ahaziah, Athaliah, Jehoaz, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah are not mentioned in this regard. It is uncertain whether these books were royal records themselves or edited annals based on the records. It seems likely, in view of the negative references to certain kings, Zimri, Shallum, and Manasseh, which would not very likely be the product of the king's own recorders, that the books were edited annals. Furthermore, the Judean author of Kings could hardly have had access to all the royal records of the northern kingdom. The content of these books appears identical in character to the Assyrian annals. Do we have these? Probably the mass of facts on royal activities in Kings came from these books. Chronicles mentions the book of the kings of Israel and the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, or Judah and Israel. The chronicler seems to be referring to the same works, but probably did not actually have them at his disposal. That's interesting. All right, well, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll jump into chapter 15. And 15, we're going to be talking about, starting with 15, we're going to be talking about the reigns, different reigns in Judah. So right here we were talking about, right? Then Abijam, his son reigned in his place. And that's where we're going to be starting in the first section of chapter 15. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's reading. And check back tomorrow for chapter 15, all right? I'll see you guys then. Take care. Bye-bye.